What if I told you that there is a powerful teaching that has been forgotten, or rather hidden, because it reveals something that many people don't want you to know? What if this teaching revealed what really consumes a person's soul and who is being burned without even realizing it? Have you ever wondered if hell is a distant place, or if it might be closer than you think? What is burning is not an external fire, but something that is burning within. And perhaps, without realizing it, you or someone close to you is feeding those flames every day. Why do certain verses cause so much trouble? What is so shocking about the truth that many would rather hide? Today, let's unravel it together. What I'm about to share with you is not just an old story, but a living, life-changing wake-up call for you right now. Stay with me to the end, because the key to freeing yourself from this soul-consuming fire may be easier than you think, and it could change everything. Do you ever feel like there's something beyond what you've been taught? As if the truth is right in front of you, but covered by layers of interpretation, tradition, and fear? Many people live without question, accepting everything they're told. But what if some of the information you've been told is just part of a larger story, or worse, distorted to control, limit, and keep you from true freedom? I don't say this to provoke suspicion, but to invite you to look with fresh eyes at what has always been there, waiting to be seen clearly. There have been teachings of mine, words that I have shared with love and the intention of freeing hearts, that have been misunderstood, altered, or even silenced over the centuries, not by accident. There is a transformative power in discovering that the truth about life, death, and what many call hell is not an imposed punishment, but a reflection of the choices each person makes. To understand this is to free oneself from a fear that has been fostered to control, not to teach. How many times have I seen people imprisoned by the fear of divine punishment, when what I really wanted was for them to understand the love that liberates and heals? Ask yourself, why would they hide a teaching that shows the kingdom of heaven is not far away, but within everyone's reach, here and now? What if hell was less about a place of eternal flames and more about a state of consciousness that many experience while they are still alive? How often have you carried guilt, resentment, or anger to the point where you felt like you were burning up inside? This is the flame that hurts the most, the one that feeds on what we cultivate in our thoughts and feelings. As I walked through the cities, I met many people who were ruled by fear. They feared punishment and judgment, and they clung to rituals that they thought were enough to please the Father. But they forgot that the most important thing was always inner transformation. It's not about memorized words or empty external practices, but about love that manifests itself in actions, forgiveness that relieves, and compassion that heals. What hurts in the soul is not the hand of God that punishes, but the heart itself, which, when it turns away from love, is lost in darkness. There was one teaching that I spoke clearly, but many tried to ignore. The kingdom is within you. Why is this truth so disturbing? Because it gives everyone responsibility for their lives and their state of being. You can no longer point outward and wait for someone to come along and fix it or punish you. Every thought you nurture, every emotion you choose to feed, builds your paradise or your suffering, and that is liberating, but it also takes courage. Over time, there have been interpretations that have reinforced fear instead of love. They have used my words to condemn when I have offered them to uplift the fallen and heal wounded hearts. Who wins if you live in fear? Certainly not the Father, who is the pure source of love and creation. Fear paralyzes. Love, on the other hand, transforms. That's why understanding this truth is not only important, it's urgent. For while you wait for some distant punishment, you may be ignoring the little hells that are brewing inside you. Unresolved hurts, guilt that weighs you down, anger that corrodes. Don't be fooled by empty promises that simply attending a temple or following outward rules will guarantee your peace. True peace is not won with appearances, but with sincerity of heart. How often have you found yourself doing something just to be accepted, or out of fear of what might happen if you didn't? That's the prison I want to help you get out of. Freedom lies in living truthfully, acting lovingly, and above all, forgiving yourself. But you may ask yourself, what about that verse that talked about eternal fire, about the gnashing of teeth and the punishment of the wicked? there is a deeper meaning that has been lost or perhaps conveniently left out. For when understood, in its essence, it reveals not only a warning but an opportunity for transformation. And that is where we begin to understand why so many people are troubled by this truth. Because by revealing it, the idea of a punishing God is dismantled and personal responsibility is exalted. The fire I've been talking about is real, yes, but it's not the one in the scary images created to control. It's the fire of conscience that burns whenever we stray from the truth of love and oneness with the Father. What if I told you that this fire may already be burning in you or in someone close to you, not as a punishment, but as a reflection of what has been cultivated within? And that is what leads us to understand the warning that was given and that many chose to silence. Have you ever stopped to think why certain teachings cause so much discomfort? Why do some choose to ignore words that warn and call for awareness? When a truth confronts what is comfortable, it is natural that there will be resistance. And so it has been with a teaching of mine that many have tried over time to distort, hide, or reinterpret to make it more comfortable. Not to liberate, but to keep people in a state of conformity and fear without question. There was a verse, handed down in different variations, often rewritten or simply forgotten, that spoke of the danger of ignoring one's conscience and turning away from the love that sustains all things. I warned, "Woe to those who, having eyes, do not see, and having ears, do not hear." These words were not a threat. They were an urgent call for everyone to awaken to the truth of their own nature. However, many interpreted this as a warning of external punishment, when in fact it was an invitation to look inward and realize the natural consequences of living disconnected from one's essence. The eternal fire that they mentioned and spread as a fear is not a lake of physical flames prepared for punishment after death. The fire that consumes is the fire that burns in the hearts of those who live in dissatisfaction, anger, guilt, and envy. It is the weight of bad choices, negative thoughts and actions that hurt themselves and others. This burning is happening here and now, and many don't even realize they are living in this state of inner torment. Have you ever felt such deep pain that it felt like something was eating you up inside? That's the fire I'm talking about. A fire that doesn't have to be eternal if you're willing to change it. Ask yourself, how many times have you fed yourself thoughts that only brought pain? How many words spoken without love have created wounds in others and in you? This is not an external punishment. It's the law of life being fulfilled. What you send out comes back. Just as a planted seed grows and bears fruit, your thoughts and emotions create realities. This was the warning that many wanted to silence. For recognizing this requires responsibility. It's easier to blame external forces or expect automatic forgiveness than to face the need to change internally. Throughout my life, I've seen many who would rather practice rituals and follow empty rules than look at their own attitudes. That's why I warned. Not everyone who calls me Lord will enter the kingdom, but he who does the Father's will. And what is that will? That they live in love, in truth, in forgiveness, that they free themselves from the ego that separates and creates conflict. It's not about words said in memorized prayers, but about actions that show compassion, choices that uplift the soul. You may ask yourself, then why have some hidden or altered this teaching? Because a conscious and awakened heart cannot be manipulated. Those who understand that they carry the divine spark within them don't succumb to fear. And there are those who prefer that people live in fear, expecting punishment or salvation from outside, instead of realizing that the kingdom and hell are conditions that manifest within each person. Remember, life is a series of decisions. Every thought nurtured, every gesture offered or refused builds the reality you experience. To whom much is given, much will be required, not out of obligation, but because to have a conscience is to accept the obligation to act in love and truth. The warning that many didn't want to hear still echoes, for the laws of existence are immutable. What you plant, you will reap. What you give to the world comes back to you multiplied. So if hell is this state of separation and self-imposed suffering, how do we get out of it? How do you extinguish the fire that burns your soul and find the peace you so desperately seek? This is the question that touches the heart of everyone who awakens to this truth. And the answer is closer than you think. For centuries, many people have lived in fear of a place called hell, a supposed realm of fire and eternal suffering, where souls are cast to pay for their sins. But I ask you, what kind of father, who is pure love, would create a place to eternally punish his own children? Would you, who feel love for someone, condemn them to eternal suffering? If we have compassion and forgiveness in our humanity, imagine what divine love is capable of. The concept of hell that many people know is based on human interpretations driven by fear and the need for control. When I spoke of the fire that consumes, I wasn't describing a physical place but a state of consciousness. This fire is real, but it doesn't need visible flames to burn. It's the fire of guilt that corrodes, of resentment that poisons, of anger. That destroys from within. How many times have you felt a heaviness in your chest, an anguish that seemed to have no end? This is not punishment from the outside. It's the result of thoughts and feelings that turn away from love. My words were meant to warn and awaken, not to condemn. The weeping and gnashing of teeth I mentioned is not a horror scene for the afterlife, but the portrait of the soul that, even in life, is consumed by regrets and unresolved sorrows. Think about the times you've held a grudge. How did it make you feel? How did it affect your days, your relationships? This is the hell that many people are experiencing right now without even realizing it. And the most painful thing is that these people often believe they are doomed, when in fact, they have the freedom to choose otherwise. I have seen men and women destroy themselves in pursuit of power, wealth, or revenge, only to discover too late that these paths lead to an insatiable emptiness. That emptiness is the distance from love, the coldness of separation from that which gives life meaning and peace. It's not God who turns away from someone. It's the person who, by choosing selfishness and indifference, builds walls around his own heart. And those walls are hot, suffocating. They burn without any fire being seen. Have you ever seen someone who seems to have everything, but lives restlessly, unsatisfied, and others who, even with little, radiate a peace that words cannot explain? This is because hell and heaven are internal states, not distant places. If your thoughts are dominated by fear, envy, or pride, you will feel the flames of emotional discomfort. On the other hand, when you choose to forgive, be grateful, and love, you experience a relief that seems to erase all pain. This is not to minimize what I've called fire. It is intense, but it is a reflection of the choices we make every day. The good news is that no soul is stuck in this state forever. There is always a way back, a way to douse the inner flames with the waters of love and compassion. No one is destined to burn forever, unless they insist on feeding that which creates suffering. But if hell is this state of separation and pain, how can we avoid falling into it? How do you keep negative emotions from consuming you? And if you're already burning up inside, how do you extinguish the fire and find peace again? The answer may surprise you. It doesn't lie in grand gestures or external quests. It begins with a simple but powerful act that many people ignore, but which has the power to transform the entire soul. Have you ever stopped to realize how small, everyday attitudes can ignite a fire that, without care, grows and begins to consume everything around it? Many people are burning inside and don't even know it. There are no visible flames, but there is a constant burning in the chest, a restlessness that never ceases. This silent fire manifests itself in the grief we carry, in the anger we feed rather than release, in the pride that prevents us from apologizing or forgiving. And little by little, without realizing it, we burn ourselves. The ego is the fuel of this flame. It is subtle, disguised. It makes you believe that you are right, that you deserve to repay evil with more evil. It whispers, "Why forgive if he doesn't deserve it? Or don't give in, you're more important." And so, in an effort to protect themselves or feel superior, many isolate themselves, cut ties, and get stuck in a cycle of suffering. This is the inferno that burns silently. One that burns not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Some people carry this flame for years. Imagine a man who had a fight with a friend and never spoke to him again. At first, he seems to have gotten over it. But when he hears about it, his heart races and his face heats up. That's the unquenched fire, the wound that's still open. Now think of someone who is always complaining, always finding fault with everything and everyone. This person always feels tired, an inexplicable weight. How can you not see that this is also a kind of inner burning? It's not a punishment, it's a consequence. What you choose to nourish in your mind and heart is what grows. This fire also manifests in envy, when you compare yourself to others and feel pain for what you don't have, or in resentment, which, contrary to what many people think, doesn't hurt the person who caused it, but consumes the person who carries it. How many sleepless nights have we had because of worries that could have been given to the Father? How many harsh words have you impulsively spoken, leaving a bitter taste of regret? This is the fire of the ego which, if left unchecked, will only grow. Have you ever found yourself replaying old arguments in your mind, imagining better answers or ways to get even? This is like adding fuel to the fire. And while you're at it, who suffers? You do. The other person may not even remember. They may be at peace, but your soul continues to burn with what could have been resolved with a simple gesture of humility and love. The ego screams, it wants to be right, it wants to win. The silent heart cries out for peace, but it is not always heard. And don't think that this only affects your emotions. The inner fire is reflected in the body. How many diseases are born of an embittered heart? How many physical pains are warnings from the soul asking for relief? This fire wears out, consumes vital energy, and yet many people get used to it, thinking it's normal to live this way, but it's not. You weren't made to carry this pain. The Father wants you to live easily, in harmony, in peace. What if I told you that this fire doesn't have to go on? That, no matter how much it has burned for years, there is a way to extinguish the flames and experience a relief that seems impossible. I'm not talking about complicated or remote solutions. I'm talking about something that is within your power to choose, a choice that can be made right now. For while the ego feeds the fire, there is a key that can extinguish it completely and bring a peace that is unshaken by life's storms. This key doesn't lie in the answers the world offers, nor in the distractions that try to numb the pain. It lies in something simple but difficult for many, and that's what we're going to see next. If you've made it this far, you've probably realized that the real hell is not a distant place, but a condition of the soul. It burns inside, feeding on pride, resentment, guilt, and fear. But the most important question now is, how do we extinguish this fire? How do we free ourselves from this invisible pain that consumes so many hearts? The answer is simple, but few are willing to accept it. Love and forgiveness are the only water that can extinguish this fire. Not conditional love, given only to those who deserve it, but love offered freely without asking anything in return. The same goes for forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or accepting injustice, but letting go of the weight that has kept you trapped in suffering. Many people ask, but how can I forgive someone who has hurt me so much? I tell you, if you refuse to forgive, you're the one who keeps getting hurt. The other person can go on with their life without even remembering the pain they caused, but you carry that wound with you every day. Forgiving is not about freeing the other person from guilt. It's about freeing yourself from pain. And what about forgiving yourself? This is the step that many people avoid, but it's essential. There are people who live tormented by past mistakes, punishing themselves internally, feeling that they are not worthy to start again. But who says that the Father wants you to live that way? His love is not conditional. He doesn't expect you to be perfect, just to have an open heart to learn and grow. The water that extinguishes the fire of the soul is not found in empty rituals, rigid dogmas, or the desire for revenge. It lies in the small daily choices, choosing peace over strife, offering kindness instead of judgment, reaching out instead of turning away. It's in the act of looking at yourself with compassion, understanding that every mistake was a lesson, and that true transformation happens in the now. But maybe you're wondering, what if I try to forgive, try to love, and I still feel the pain? Then keep going. The human heart takes time to heal, but each small choice toward love dissolves a little more of the pain. It's not an immediate feeling, but a constant choice. Those who learn to forgive become immune to the fire of resentment. Those who learn to love find a relief that no amount of money can buy. The world may be in chaos, but the peace within you needn't be shaken. For that peace doesn't come from outside, but from the connection to the greater truth that has always been within you. And if you doubt that it's possible, try it. Pick a weight that you've been carrying for years and decide to let it go. See how your breathing changes, how your chest relaxes. That is a glimpse of true freedom. Inner hell can't resist true love. It dissolves, crumbles, fades away. 4. There is no darkness that can resist the light, and so the great truth that many have tried to hide is revealed. The kingdom of heaven has always been within your reach, but it requires that you choose to leave the hell you have built for yourself. What will you choose today? The time has come to decide. Will you continue to feed the flames that consume the soul, or will you choose to extinguish that fire with the love that sets you free? The truth has been laid before you. Hell is not in some distant place, but in the daily choices that bring you closer or further from peace. No one can make that choice for you. The ego will scream at you to carry on as you are, but your soul, this soul, is screaming for ease, for forgiveness, for love. Don't wait for tomorrow. The time to change is now. Let go of what is holding you back. Forgive yourself. Forgive others, and feel the release that only true love can bring. There is no darkness that can resist the light that is within you when you choose to love. Live this truth. Transform yourself. May your path be illuminated, and may you discover the peace that dwells within you. Go with this truth in your heart and be a light to the world.